welcome back to another Blu-ray discussion video. Today we're going to be talking about the new release from Eureka, which is spy number 322. I was trying to think of a bingo joke, but I just couldn't think one on the spot. I'll leave that in for free. Spy number 322 of the Eureka Masters of Cinema collection from director Claire Denis, who I think most people would agree is a master of cinema. But now that I think about it, I've seen one other Claire Denis film before, and I've talked about it on my channel many years ago, Let the Sunshine In. And I just felt like it was going to be a film I'd enjoy. And I didn't really. I think I sold it, actually. It was a rare move for me. But yeah, maybe I just don't like Claire Denis films. I don't know. But this one, I was a bit antsy about. Trouble Every Day from 2001. Very striking image on the front there, which depicts one of our main characters in a very memorable scene of the film, actually, with the boarded up door and the two people who are trying to get at each other sexually through this boarded up door. Man, a lot to say about this film. Where do I start? Hello everyone, this is Luke from about 5 minutes into the video. I've decided to just jump on here at the beginning to say trigger warning for anyone who doesn't like descriptions of graphic sexual detail and violence, because I do talk about that stuff a lot in this video based on the films that I'm talking about. So you've been warned. And if you're not 18 or older, definitely don't watch this video. Definitely don't watch this video. Okay, cool, thanks. I want to throw in another thing here before we get started. I'm going to be talking about the film in depth and talking about all the stuff that happens in the film. So, number one, I'm not going to sell you on Trouble Every Day. I don't think so. So whether you're on the fence about it or not, I don't think me giving a review of the film that withholds some of the things that happen is going to really sell you on it. But if you have seen it, then by all means, continue watching and hear what I have to say about the film. Okay, cool. Where do I start? Well, I was a bit antsy about it because of the whole connection to the new French Extremity movement, which, as I found out in the interview on this disc and this release, was kind of coined in a 2004 article. And so retroactively, this became part of that kind of canon. But Irreversible is another notable film in that kind of cycle. It's not something that's very much for me. I'm not into the whole extreme cinema thing. It's just not my bag, baby, if you get what I mean. I've never really gravitated towards it, and it's always repelled me a little bit. But I've never been fully nope, I put my foot down, I won't watch it. I'll always try. I'll always give it a good old college try, and I'll attempt to watch one of these things. But I will say, with Trouble Every Day, I didn't hate it, and I thought I would. So it's been an interesting exercise for me in subjecting myself to something that is not really in my interests. So 2 examples of extreme cinema that I can give you that I have seen, and I would class them part of extreme cinema, would be Salo, 120 Days of Sodom, and In the Realm of the Senses. So one film is just 2 hours of young kidnapped people being subjected to sexual violence, emotional torment, physical violence for about 2 hours straight by these evil people. And that's it. There's no real arc to the film for me. It's just an exercise in excess. There's literally a scene in that film of people just having a banquet of shit. They're just eating shit. And I felt like I was eating shit watching the film. It wasn't a case of we're just making a commentary on this. I just thought it was just so bland and uncomfortable, and none of the characters had anything to them for me. It was just evil people and just empty vessels to be used as kind of fodder for that. It wasn't like I was hoping that there would be an escape attempt or something. I just felt like there was nothing there, to really capture my interest as an audience member. And well, I will go along with the fact that maybe, not even maybe, I think all arts shouldn't be, made on a strict kind of list of rules. There shouldn't be. You should be able to do anything you want. But I didn't like it. I hated it, actually. If other people like it or think it has worth to it, then they're just wrong and bad people. No, I'm joking. I don't get it. I don't get Solo. And then In the Realm of the Senses is based on a true story of a woman who was obsessed with this man she was having an affair with. I believe she was having an affair with him. It's been a long time since I've seen the film, thankfully. And then she kills him, and spoilers, cuts his dick off. And so the whole film is it's just them fucking. And they do it for real, and it's artful because it's an art movie. And then she sticks an egg up her vagina. I should put a trigger warning on this video, actually. Shall I film that now and put it at the beginning of the video? I think I should. Okay, I just recorded it, so that should have me covered now, liability-wise. But yeah, the egg goes up the vagina. He has sex with the old geisha, and then she pisses herself. Like, it's just like disgusting. And there is a close-up shot of the egg going inside. Like, it's just like, why is this art? It's pornography. And people push back against me. They say that I'm closed-minded, that it isn't pornography, that it's art, and there's all these, but I just don't see it, So for me, extreme cinema in that realm of those two films has kind of been tarred for me. So I was kind of expecting the same with Trouble Every Day, but it wasn't that. And there's a key difference to this film. This film made me uncomfortable. This film was uncomfortable. This film was disgusting at times. But what made it, I don't want to say enjoyable, but what made it tolerable, I'm really selling this, is that the characters had conflict. They had dimension. They had layers like an onion. There are many layers. This is so, like, paramount to me. Like, but again, it's strange because for me, as kind of a fan of film, a fan of cinema, I think films should be and can be anything. I think you should be able to make a film where there's a character who has no character, or that there is something that just doesn't have any substance to it whatsoever. It is just a vessel for something else, but that doesn't mean that I have to enjoy every aspect of cinema or every aspect of art. So for me, what made this surprising was that there was actual conflict going on with the characters of the story. So this is the 4K box set of the film itself. Got a blurb there on the back about the film and the countries involved in its production, which are many. It's France, Germany, Luxembourg, and Japan. Is a French film, obviously Claire Denis, 2001, and I believe this has a Dolby Vision grade. Dolby Vision, HDR10 compatible. And what makes this a unique 4K release for Eureka as well, before we get further into the film itself, is that it is actually the first, I believe, dual format 4K. So we have the case on the inside here. And then we have the 4K disc, 4K here. And then we have the 4K disc with a couple of postcards or art cards, most of which I can't show you on YouTube. And then we have the regular Blu-ray there as well. So I think that's kind of cool for people who want it. And you get all the information on the back as well, the same as the slip, which is attached to the back of the box set. So I'll be referring to that at some point. There's also a book, which is 60 pages long, with a number of essays, which I haven't read yet, and I think I will. Although at this point I'm doing the video about the release, so when would I talk about that? I don't know. I'm still, that's the thing. I always strive to go through every extra when I review a release, because I feel like I should. In this case, I didn't feel like I should, because I just knew that it wasn't good. And I gave it a try, okay? So we'll talk about that in a little bit, how much of the bonus material I went through. It's a very nice book. Again, I'm going to try and find like a piece that I can actually show you, but it's very nicely put together. I have not read any of the essays in the booklet yet, but up to a point, I think you don't have to go through every single extra on a release. I feel like I have to if I'm reviewing it. I feel a responsibility to do that. And here we have the regular release as well, which I can show you. I'll kind of tilt that there. We have it in shots. Yes, okay. So this is just the regular release, which was put out at the same time. So if anyone just wants the Blu-ray, they can get this one, which is interesting again because I believe I don't know if there's been other instances of a new 4K release and they put out the regular one without a slipcover, but I think this is the first one. Because there was the Valiant ones where they put out the 4K with the slipcover and then the regular Blu-ray with the slipcover, and it had a color variant to it. But it had the regular release available, but it's also dual format as well, which I think is good for everyone it caters to everyone. So, and people were really excited when this was announced. There was a big kind of, oh my god, the first Claire Denis film that's been put out in 4K and everything, and there was some excitement about that. And then also kind of like trepidation because some people knew that it was a bit of a hairy viewing experience, not literally, although there is some. Anyway, Trouble Every Day. We follow, and I probably should have the booklet to give me the names of the characters to remind myself. I think Corey is the French female lead of the film. And then we have Vincent Gallo, who plays... I've forgotten his name. I know that his wife is called June, and they're the Browns. But I'd have to refer to the booklet to find out his name, because it has left my brain. Shane. So we have Beatrice Dalle as Corey, and we have Alex Desca as Leo. And these are our two main couples that we follow in the film. So the film opens, it's set in France. And it opens with this woman, played by Beatrice Dalle, Corey, and she is soliciting sex from a truck driver. And she seems very open to this. He seems very open to it. And then we cut to a nighttime sequence, and a man arrives. It turns out to be Corey's husband, Leo. And he arrives, and I enjoyed the mysteries. I didn't know who he was at first. I thought, is this a random passerby? You know, was she attacked by this man? Because she's covered in blood and she's kind of cradling herself and she's kind of like shaking, rocking back and forth. And she's kind of doing this thing where she's kind of just like almost like just purging herself of like an uncomfortable energy within her body. And then we see this mutilated corpse. At this point, it could be that he attempted to rape her and she bit his face, right? But the man, Leo, goes over to Corey and he kind of comforts her in a way that feels familiar. So, okay, maybe he's the partner of this woman. Is this something that they do? Is he trying to get bodies? You know, and we later learn out that he is a doctor and he is trying to study the brain and the human mind and the condition that his wife has, where she craves flesh and blood and sex. So at the beginning, I was almost close that, you know, maybe he's trying to, you know, get his wife to kill people, luring them in with her body, and then he can kind of harvest the organs or the brains or whatever. And we do actually see at one point a brain in his lab, so maybe that's happened at some point. But at the same time, they go home and she's locked in her room, and there is a sense that, you know, even the little detail of like he's looking out of the window and then he shuts the shutters, he locks them, there's another lock, then he closes the window. There's like a system of keys and locks. Like you get the sense that this is locked down fairly securely, and for good reason. And I could just go through the whole film really, but you know, their relationship is kind of interesting and elusive. But then we cut to an American couple on a plane who are arriving in France. The Browns, Shane and June, played by Vincent Gallo, and is it Trisha something? I'll get her name right here. Trisha Vesey. She's brilliant in the film, I think. Beatrice Dalle is just a force of nature. There's just a really unique quality to her. The actor who plays Leo does a very kind of solid job of playing a very, again, elusive character. You don't really figure out a lot about this guy. And I like that, you know. And there's a lot of the film I did like, to be fair. But with Shane, Vincent Gallo's character, you know, he's taken his wife to France for their honeymoon, but we soon learn that he's there. He has an ulterior motive to being in France. He's trying to contact a scientist. And we find out that he's a doctor and he works in this field. he palms it off to his wife. It's like, oh, I should have told you, but there's a thing, and there's a doctor, and I might have to just have a dinner or something. That's all it is. But he is obsessively calling this lab, and he's searching for someone. He wants to find out information. And we learn that he has a similar kind of condition where he fantasizes over blood in a sexual way. And that was really in a sense, almost the most uncomfortable. Well, maybe not the most uncomfortable, but it was near the beginning. He's in the plane and he's kind of just in the toilet. And we just see flashes of his wife covered in blood. I don't mean covered, I mean drenched in blood. Like it's so it's sickly, you know. And the way she's shot is kind of erotic almost, and he's fantasizing about his wife in that sense, and it's just really strange and unsettling. And so from then on, there's something going on with this guy, and there's a lot that goes on behind the eyes. Now, Vincent Gallo, I've read some stuff about him before this film and after this film. Was it Buffalo 66 and I think The Brown Bunny? I've read some not so great things about the guy. I don't know too much about it beyond that. But I have to concede his performance is pretty damn incredible in this film, because his demeanor is very soft at times, and it can move very easily and fluidly into something very intimidating. It doesn't feel like a kind of a sharp switch. It feels like a very calculated transition. There's a scene where he's just looking over her in the bath, and that shot of her perspective, of him towering over the camera, not saying anything at first, is incredibly intimidating. And he just has a look about him that's, I don't know, a bit gnarly. There's something about him that feels a bit off in the film. Even just these little details of the maid, who ends up being quite an important figure in the whole film, and the hotel that the Browns are staying at, the way that he's looking at the back of her neck as they're walking towards the room, the way that he holds the sheet as he's looking at her, I mean, it's just very suggestive stuff. And I have to say, the first hour of the film, maybe, I kind of almost loved it. I thought that the mystery was so engaging. There was a point about 40 minutes in where I was losing a bit of interest, but it came back around again. But once it starts to really dive into the extreme elements, it just was very off-putting for me. And the reason why is that the tone in which, you know, there's this teenager who lives across the street from Corey, and he sees this mysterious, beautiful woman in the window. And eventually, and that kind of plays out throughout the whole film, where he's trying to get to her, and he notices the time of when her husband leaves for the day. He's trying to get into the house, but it's all boarded up and locked down. But eventually he gets in, and he doesn't know what he's got himself in for, because this is a woman who can't help herself, and she will have sex, and she will devour, and she will maim. I should say that this is, I'm going to get into spoilers here, but it's just one of those things where maybe I should record that as well and put that at the beginning of the video too. Should we do that? Should we throw in a second kind of disclaimer at the beginning? Let's do that. All right, so I've done that. We're double safe. I'm not liable for anything. Okay, we can talk about spoilers. So this teenager comes in and he sees her, and it is a great scene where the door has been boarded up, because previously in the film she sawed through the whole door with a fucking a hedge trimmer or whatever it was. And it's palpable, this energy between them. He wants this woman and she wants him, but for very different reasons. That he's trying to like put his tongue through the gaps in the planks, and then he eventually rips it off, and they just have each other. And then the music and the way she starts to kind of bite into him and stuff, it's horrible. I will say there's the two scenes in the film. There's that sex sequence which ends with her killing him and biting into him and everything. And then there's the rape of the maid at the end of the film by Shane. And both of them have these disgusting elements to them. Particularly with the Corey and the young man. She's bitten into his shoulder and she's playing around with this flap of skin. It's just horrid, absolutely rancid, you know. It goes through me, that stuff anyway, in general. You know, if I see a scene in a film or a documentary about like a surgery and something's open, it's one of those things I hate. And it isn't like extreme in this film, I will say, funnily enough, with the new French Extremity, but it's enough that wigs me out. The rape scene at the end, and that scene with the young man who she kills. There's horrible things happening in them. In the case of the rape of the maid, he ends up biting her vagina, and there's blood. I mean, that in itself is disgusting. It's the screams of the actors that make those two scenes so horribly uncomfortable to me. And I have to give credit to those two actors who, they sold the scene, they sold the moment with those screams. And there's a bit in the commentary with Claire Denis where she says that the screams of the actress who plays the maid during that rape sequence, she says that Vincent Gallo said that he had nightmares about those screams. And I can see why. I mean, it's just horrible. I mean, it is horrible. It's just, there's no working around it. What I found interesting was that I was so uncomfortable with the film. And I mean, I've seen rape sequences in films. I've seen, people get murdered in films. And I've seen stuff that's maybe borderline similar to this, but in other types of horror movies where the tone is a bit more campy or not as serious or stylized. There is, and I couldn't help but think of the works of David Lynch, because this film is built on a mystery as we work our way through the story of wondering, like, why is she like that? Why is he like that? Why is he trying to find, a way to cure himself? And that's another thing, again, that I feel like the conflict of the characters was so interesting, is because you don't really get any dialogue, I don't think, from Corey. No, there is some dialogue. She says she wants to die. Like, I'm ready, like, I'm done now, I want to die. So you get this verbal, but mainly I feel like it's just in the body language. You feel that this is a woman who has a beast inside her, and she doesn't like that, but she also can't avoid it. And with Shane, he is, again, desperately trying to find an answer. He's desperately trying to see if there's a way to fix what he's thinking and feeling, these predatory urges and these sexual violent urges, which he, eventually kind of brings to fruition at the end of the film, unfortunately. But the fact that that conflict exists in those characters means that I'm not just watching a film for an hour and 45 minutes where, yeah, they like eating people, cool, and they like doing it, and they just do it. It isn't that at all. It is about the restraint of it, which I thought made it a good film, actually. And that's the thing I have to kind of concede with Trouble Every Day for me, is that I think it's a really good film. I really do think. I think the atmosphere, the tension, the build-up, the suspense is brilliantly done. Some of the visual moments are fantastic. I mean, again, jump into the end, but when he's killed the maid and he's in his hotel shower room and his wife comes to the curtain, and you just see the bead of blood dripping down. I mean, it's a really great visual, and it's a great ending, actually, to that whole sequence where, he's washed all the blood away, and he opens the curtain, and they embrace, and then you see there's another bit of blood, and we see her eyes looking up, and is she seeing the blood, or is she not seeing the blood, and does she know, And that's another thing, is there's this scene where they're about to become intimate in bed, and he leaves and goes to the bathroom and ends up masturbating, and it's a very somber moment and a really heartbreaking moment, actually, because he leaves and he goes and very audibly climaxes in the bathroom, and his wife is outside the door and she's crying and she says, "You lied to me." Now this could mean that she knows that he's there in France for other reasons than just a work meeting. But also, I just feel like there's such a sense of betrayal that Trisha Vesey betrays in that moment where she's in tears and she just hits him like, "You lied to me." And, imagine that, where you're a woman and you want to you've just become married to this man that you love, and you want to kind of, consummate the marriage in a sense, and he just runs off and wanks off in a bathroom. How horrible that must make you feel about yourself. And I thought that it was just heartbreaking seeing the way that she reacted. It really got to me, actually. So, while some people might kind of snicker at like, "Oh, he wanked off in the bathroom," like, it's actually a really emotional sequence when it comes to the aftermath of it. But also the idea that he doesn't want to give in to what he wants because he loves his wife. And with the maid, it's almost like a get out of jail for free card, in a sense, to put it bluntly, in a really horrible way, where he doesn't have any feelings for this woman, and so he ultimately decides to pursue her And yeah, and that sequence itself is horrific. The coldness of it, the graphic nature of it, but then once it's over, and this is where I really thought, ah, fuck, like I can't hate this film because it's really effective in the way that it's putting all this stuff together. We have the sequence where she's killed, and it just cuts to like a kind of wider shot, and it takes place in kind of a locker room, and we just see her head and the top of her torso just splayed out on the floor, blood everywhere. And then her body just slowly moves away as he's dragging her off screen. And just the kind of, I don't know, the simplicity of it, the matter of fact, just the functionality of it, of just this pulling the body away, the blood trailing across the floor. It was like, I don't know. In the commentary, not to laugh at it, but in the commentary, I watched the last half hour of the film with the commentary with Claire Denis, the director of the film, and also the cinematographer. If I can find her name here, Agnès Godard, and they're almost kind of like in awe of the rape scene, like oh, look at the way that his hand is there, you know. They're so in kind of just the art of it, and yeah, that's just a tricky thing. It's a tricky thing because I kind of ranted from my soapbox earlier about, you know, things being considered art and whether certain disgusting things shouldn't be. But I mean, unfortunately, it's a part of the human experience. This horrific thing that people do to each other, and there is a kind of an intentional depiction of it in this sense from the choices made. And the two scenes are very different. The one with Corey and the young man, and the one with Shane and the young woman. They're shot very differently. And it's talked about a little bit in the interview on the disc, actually, about how the first one is shot more lovingly. And certainly it's kind of this floating camera around the body and this young man and everything as they're about to have sex, which then escalates into something more destructive. But I will push back, actually, that and the interview on the disc is with, I'll get her name here, new French extremity expert Alice Haylett Bryan. Kasich agreed to disagree for me on that interview with what she said about the motivations of both Corey and Shane in terms of their lust for blood and sex and violence and stuff. She says that the way that Shane does it is out of kind of... she doesn't say lust, but you know, it's desire, and just he wants to just take from a woman in that sense, and to bite into the flesh and to all that stuff. Whereas Corey, she says that she loves the people that she kills, and it's an act of love, and she can't help herself. But I don't think she loves this young man who's just broken into her house. You know, I don't think she loves the kind of truck driver that she kind of solicited on the side of the road. I understand where she's coming from. I do think that it is more of a sensual experience, if you can use that word, maybe not, but it certainly isn't as predatory as Shane's moment, and you can only wonder where things would go from there with his character from this story. But yeah, I think it's a really effective film. The 4K transfer looked great. It was really, you know, lots of detail, and in certain moments where, I don't know. I mean, it's not really a part of the film, really, but there's a couple of cutaway shots of like of the river at night, and this like beautiful kind of clouds in the sky look gorgeous. I mean, it's not really a part of the film, really. They're just kind of almost pillow shots in a sense to the main story, but there are these nice little moments of nice visuals amidst a lot of not so nice visuals. But yeah, I don't know. Triple Every Day. There's something about it. There is something about it, but I don't know if it's something that is going to resonate with me on repeat viewings. Would I ever watch the film again? I don't know, and that speaks to the whole thing of like this collection, and could I be pushed out of collecting the MOC releases if they move into this area of cinema that I'm not too fond of, especially with the upcoming release of Martyrs, also in 4K, which is apparently a lot more graphic than this one. Time will tell, and that'll be a fun journey for us to all go on together. when that time comes. But as far as extras, I watched the interview with Alice Haylett Brown, which I did enjoy actually. It put some context to the film in terms of when it was made and Claire Denis' career, how it wasn't something that she really had done before. It was kind of a bit of a departure for her. And then also the video essay, Material Vampires and the Defeat of Science by film scholar Virginie Selavi. That sounds like I said Selavi. That's not what I said, but I can't. I do try, but I don't think that's the correct way to pronounce her name. But I enjoyed the video essay actually, and it talks about vampirism a lot, you know, and there is kind of this yeah, I hasten to say the word fun sequence in a film like Trouble Every Day, but there is a scene where Shane and June are kind of up on this kind of gothic church or cathedral building, and there's all these gargoyles and everything, and he's pretending to be Frankenstein and pretending to be Dracula or Nosferatu perhaps, which maybe lends a little bit of credibility to the people who would call this a vampire film of sorts. But that sequence where they're kind of together and happy, and he's taking pictures, and she has this scarf that flows around her face, and then it blows away, and we follow it flying down to the street. That was a beautiful sequence. So there are moments of beauty in this film. There are moments of absolute horror, but it's also just the realism of it that really got under my skin. No pun intended. I think I said that in my other video, but as I said, we'll round off with this. As I said, with the David Lynch connection, there's a mystery. It's sexual, it's violent, and it recalled to me films like Blue Velvet, Fire Walk With Me, Wild at Heart, and others, where Lynch does use sex and violence in a very evocative way. But for me, in those films, I can go and watch Blue Velvet again and again and again, even though there's a really horrible rape scene in it. Quasi-rape scene. I still don't know if if Dennis Hopper... I mean, that whole scene is very strange, but it's certainly incredibly invasive and violent and physical and horrible. But I can watch that because the tone of Blue Velvet is a dreamy tone. It has a kind of... not a surreal quality, because I hasten to say that... You could say that Eraserhead is surreal. I wouldn't say that all of Lynch's work is surreal, but there's an off-kilter atmosphere to a lot of that stuff. And with Fire Walk With Me, I mean, the scene in Fire Walk With Me where, all I'll say is that's really spoiling anything, the scene when Bob comes through the window. That whole sequence, I mean, I shouldn't be okay with watching that again, ever, you know, but because of the way that it's portrayed, it is in this kind of, again, dreamy story where there are supernatural elements, and the way that it's portraying that act is a bit more symbolic than naturalistic, you know, and heightened as well. Trouble Every Day isn't really heightened at all. It's like the cold hard stone that the maid is raped on the floor of that locker room. It's a crash to reality, and so to see someone screaming in pain as they're kind of devoured, and it feels real, that's a special kind of unsettling. So I think that's where I would kind of categorize Trouble Every Day for me. Is it's a special kind of unsettling in terms of the things that it's trying to convey and get across. And I do think that makes it a really good film. Not one I loved. So I'm still wrestling with that. The fact that I do kind of really like it. And the performances I think are really great. And again, credit to I keep forgetting her name, Trisha Vesey, because she has arguably the least interesting role of the four kind of main characters that we follow. But there's something about her performance that I think really ties together Shane's character quite well. I think without her there, the film wouldn't work as well. And I think that she is very vulnerable in the film in ways that might not even be obvious. I think there's just little looks from, you know, just the feeling behind the eyes sometimes can tell you a lot. I just think she does it's a remarkable performance for me, because the film ultimately ends with a shot of her eyes, and that delivers the final blow of the story, I think, for me. So I think that she deserves probably more credit than she gets, because I thought that she was the one coming out of it that was maybe even the most impactful, even though she's not involved in any of the scenes that are extreme or kind of graphic. I just think, yeah, anyway, I've waffled on enough about that and the film itself. So I like the 2 new extras. There is an archival audio commentary with Claire Denis, as I said, and the cinematographer Agnès Godard. I watched the last half an hour of it, and I'm not sure if I want to watch all of it. I may do. Now I'm intrigued to watch it. I don't know. It's a strange one. I guess it'd be on my own time at this point, 'cause I feel like I've sufficiently reviewed this release now. But yeah, I did feel at times it's like, you're talking about this rape sequence. It's like, oh god, it's the I don't know. The tone was really weird, but I guess they're viewing it very clinically from that artistic perspective. So I don't know. I would be intrigued to go back to the beginning and watch it with the commentary with the director. And it's great that that's included, and it's in French, and it is translated obviously for this release. There's also a new audio commentary with horror scholar. There is also a new audio commentary with horror scholar Lindsay Hallam. I'd be intrigued to give that one a listen to, actually. That's the thing. I feel like I watched the interview, I watched the video essay with the hopes that it would unlock something that would make me see the film in a different way and be okay with really enjoying it. And it's not to say I feel like I can't say that I enjoyed the film, but just knowing how visceral that negative feeling I had watching those 2 scenes in particular, it's hard to wrestle with my feelings on the film as a whole, because now that I sit down and talk about all of it, I think there's some really great moments in it. There's another scene where she's killed another man, Corey, and we don't see the body. We see her husband digging a grave, and we just see in the dark these long blades of grass just kind of glistening and dripping with blood. I mean, it's a beautiful image of something really horrible. So, and that's kind of where art can be quite potent, I think, is when you're able to blend beauty with horror. I don't know. Is this a great film? Maybe this is a great film. I don't know. Anyway, notes on a postcard, right? There's obviously I've talked about the book, which I haven't read anything out of yet. Maybe I should have. I don't know. Now I feel like I should have. Now I feel like I should have gone through everything, right, and given this the full treatment it deserves. Maybe I should. Maybe I should do that. Maybe I should do that and then come back at the end, and and say, hey, now I have a newfound appreciation for everything. But maybe the answer would be no. I don't know. Maybe I could do a sequel to this video at some point and talk about that. That'd be interesting. A sequel review, a reassessment of sorts. Maybe I'll watch the film again. That would be the test, wouldn't it? Watching the film again, now knowing where everything goes. Now I'm conflicted even more. But that was Trouble Every Day. In its brand new 4K release from Eureka. I suspect that my feelings and thoughts on Martyrs will not be as indecisive. Let's put it that way. But there you go. Let me know your thoughts on this down below. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. And I'll see you in the next one. God damn. What do I think? Makes me glad that I don't really rate films on YouTube anymore, because that would be a whole other kettle of fish. So I'm free of that distinction. I will say this though. Halfway through this review, my stomach was rumbling so much I had to go and just take a bite to eat. And as I came back to sit down, my chair ever so slightly nudged the shelving unit behind me, and a huge, like, 1.5 foot tall, probably maybe 2 foot tall Praetorian Guard from Star Wars The Last Jedi fell onto my fucking head. I don't know, there's something about him that feels a bit off in the film. And there I am, just getting on a good roll with a review, and my stomach is going... Like, I get it, you're hungry, but like, can we not just get through this damn video? Oh! And luckily, nothing was really damaged. But it was all on film, which is brilliant. But there was dust on that motherfucker. It's about to get me. I better get through this video before I start freaking out. Yeah, so that happened. Maybe that was a sign. But a sign of what? I'll give her this. I can't remember being this conflicted about a film before. I think it's better to be conflicted about a film than to feel one way or the other. Maybe it isn't, because you'd prefer to just love something wholesale, right? Or just have the confidence to hate something, right? Yeah, so maybe it's the worst thing to feel conflicted about a film. I just don't know. I don't know. But I like the uncertainty. We'll leave it there.